joined by legendary coach of the St. Louis Rams, Coach Mike Martz. Coach, introduce yourself to our audience.
I'm Mike Martz, of course. I've coached for, I guess, 20 years in the National Football League, 18 years in college, and a year in high school football. I think that going through that process, I was a year in high school, 4 years in junior college football, got into some of the lower level Division I teams, University of Pacific, San Jose State, Arizona State, coached there, University of Minnesota and Arizona State. So I kind of have gone through the whole gamut of levels of football, and then got into the National Football League. So it was a great exposure for me. I think that's, in my opinion, that's the only way to do it. I don't like skipping steps. I think you learn the game better the way I went through it. I think you learn a lot more in terms of relationships with players and coaches, etc. And I think you just learn the game better.
Coach, who've been some of the biggest mentors you've had throughout your coaching career?
You know, there's so many that have affected me. John Cooper, there's no question he made a big impact on just the details and preparation of the game itself. I felt like I was a decent coach before I went to work for him, but soon I realized I wasn't. You know, he put your face to the fire, made you justify exactly why you're doing everything that you do in the practice field during games, etc. And he would ask intimate questions about, where's the clock in the game for the quarterback? That he's got to look at. I never thought about those kinds of things. You know, his hands, footwork, everything about the game in detail. He made you understand or look up or investigate and make sure that you're teaching everything that can help the guy get to be a better player. So from that aspect, he really pushed me along quickly, scheme-wise, and just learning the NFL and football a whole different level, earnings and peasy. No question about it. He was the engine that drove the car, so to speak, with the Chargers and the Coryell years. He was a coordinator. He was calling the plays and coaching Dan Fouts and whatnot. So his approach to the game, I learned so much from him. You just lean information and wrote everything down. I was like a fly on the wall the years I was with him. And then I think Dick Vermeil made a big impact on me in a lot of respects, from both the football part of it, but just the intensity and the preparation, and a carryover from John Cooper, more or less. And then just in terms of calling a game, probably Norv Turner. I've never been around any Norv Turner as a coach. Norv, when he started the game, my first year with him at the Redskins, I think the first play he called any game that I coached for him, the opener, was a triple reverse. I was up in the box trying to help. I was coaching the quarterbacks at that time, and I'll tell you what, I was uptight when he said he was going to run that triple reverse and we're on our own 40-yard line or whatever it was. Holy cats, man! He came out on first down and threw the ball down the field, and he just went after it. And my relationship with him was real good. We experimented a lot. We weren't afraid to do different things, and really that was kind of the impetus on what we started doing at the Rams. I mean, the formation, the shifting, and why we did those things. It never really been seen a whole lot in the league before that. But Norv really had a big impact on me as a play caller.
Coach, you talked a little bit about how you've worked at various different levels. In your opinion, what's really the biggest difference between you coaching at those different levels?
The players are so different in college, in the NFL. It's just opposite of what a lot of people would think. People look at NFL players as being spoiled, and you got to cater to them. That's anything but the truth. Just the opposite in college. My experience in college was different. I think the motivation and the intensity is so different than in the National Football League. In college, you're dealing with so many other things. When I was at the University of Pacific, we were playing Washington State University, and we weren't a good team, but we're in a position to beat them. We're up there at Washington State, and the quarterback, I won't tell you his name, but I was coaching the quarterbacks at the time, and he comes back, and we've got a throw that's going to win the game down the field. It's the fourth quarter, and he throws it to the wrong guy, and it's picked off, and it's the end of the game. So I get on the bus, and I sit down next to him, and I asked him, I said, look, what were you thinking about? I mean, obviously the ball's supposed to go over here, and you threw to the wrong guy. What's going on?" And he said, I tell you, Coach, he said, I was up all night studying in the hotel room. I've got a biology exam. He wanted to be a doctor. And he said, I just didn't get any sleep. And I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to, some of the notes and stuff for the game. Yeah, well, yeah, that's how we coaches get fired and hired on those kinds of things. So that whole difference, and of course at Arizona State, there's so many things around these students, athletes that you can't control, and it's so much more than just football in their lives. We're in the NFL, it's just all football, and it's so refreshing to go into a meeting room, and these guys, they are absolutely ready to go. My first year with the Rams, or my second year with the Rams, our offensive line coach had throat cancer. So Chuck Knox walked in the office and he said, "Hey, camp started in 3 days." He said, "You're going to coach the offensive line because, Jim Erkenbeck has throat cancer and we don't know how long he's going to be gone." Well, you got to understand, I was coaching the tight ends and helping on special teams. I've been an offensive coordinator my whole life, coaching quarterbacks and receivers. And I'm going to coach the offensive line. And 3 of those guys were perennial Pro Bowlers, right? Jackie and Dougie Smith and those guys, Tommy Newberry. And so now I got to walk in that room like I know what's going on. I'm going to the first practice and I'm walking. I got my notes. I've got everything. The very first practice with these guys. And I feel this big hand on my shoulder. I look up and it's Jackie Slater and he's laughing. He says, "Hey, you're a little nervous, aren't you?" I said, "Jackie, that doesn't describe how I'm feeling right now." He laughed. He said, "You just tell me one thing that can help me be a better football player, and you got me. I'm all ears. I'm all yours. Just one thing a day. That's all I need." Then I had a much better understanding from that point on about professional football. These players, if they believe you can help them, and you know what you're talking about, and you know the details of the game, you got them. If they figure out real quick whether you know or not, and those guys that don't know, they just kind of push them aside.
Coach, what's been key, or what is key in establishing relationships with some of those players, regardless of whether you're at the collegiate level or the pro level? And how do you get them to buy into the program and the fundamentals and lessons that you're trying to teach them?
They have to trust you. They just have to trust you. The story with Jackie, he was telling me they trust me. And they trust you as long as you know, or they feel like you have their best interest at heart. You don't have to be their friend. You don't have to be anything other than a good teacher with them. That's the most important thing. I think we all in our lives look back at our days as a child and can pick out a teacher that had an impact in our lives. That's what coaching is, teaching. If you're a real good teacher, you're helping this individual get better at what they're doing in football. That relationship is very, very strong. They don't forget you, and they keep those experiences the rest of their life and use them.
In addition to that, Coach, you're probably one of the most famous parts of your career was your time spent during the Rams organization as an offensive coordinator and as a head coach during the era known as the greatest show on turf. So share with us a little bit in terms of how did this dynamic offense just all come together, and what really went into building all of its components?
It's a little complicated, to say the least, but it was a perfect place in time is what I used to like to term that. Perfect storm, if you will. Dick was in his last year. Basically, you got to win or you're done, and I knew that going in. And they didn't have a quarterback. They wanted to change that quarterback. There's so many needs. The offensive line was not very good. They had a bunch of high draft picks in there that were just kind of, they wanted to be catered to a little bit. Defensively, they're a real good team. And they basically, Isaac was injured for 2 years. It was a hamstring. I was there 2 years prior to that, and I had Isaac when he came in the league. Ricky Prohl had bounced around a little bit, and we drafted Torrey Holt, and then we got Marshall. We rebuilt that team through personnel. And in doing that, the personalities that we brought to that team had a major impact on them. That impact in the locker room, that's everything. Tony La Russa and I became pretty good friends in St. Louis, and we used to talk all the time about the impact of the locker room on the field and how important it is that locker room, that the message is constant in that locker room and everybody's on the same page. And the term that they used to use is being one of us, so to speak, right? So I think that the whole idea there is we had the right people. You know, they're really passionate about playing this game. They want to be great players. They were hungry. And the other part of this is really important. The way Dick had done things his whole career, he threw out the window this year. You know, Dick was really hard on players, practice, etc. Long practices, brutal practices, really hard on players and hard on coaches. And we sat down with him, Al Saunders and I, one evening, and asked him to change a lot of things that he was trying to do going into the preparation for the season and camp. And he wasn't comfortable with it. And we kept after it and kept after it. And, to his credit, he said, it's not working. It worked at one time. But what I'm doing right now obviously is not working. We do need to change. And he changed everything. And the players, he backed off, so to speak, and we had more quality teaching time and less of these constant reps that were kind of meaningless. You can't look at all that stuff on tape, right? So the teaching was much better. The relationships started to grow a little bit, and there was just a perfect blend there between a change in approach from the head coach and then a new influx of some key players to the system. And we took the guys in the offensive line that were, a year, we moved them out and got guys in there that were real hungry that nobody knew. Free agents and 7, 6-round draft picks, Freddie Miller and, Mike Rudidoria was a center, 285 pounds. On paper, we didn't look real impressive, but they had what it took in terms of the passion and commitment to being a great player.
One of those big components of that offense was obviously Kurt Warner, your quarterback during that time period, and his kind of rise to getting that starting quarterback job is one that many people are familiar with as well. So talk to us a little bit about what happened once, you have an injury at quarterback and then Kurt kind of takes the reins from there. How did you have to change the dynamic of the offense on the fly there? And what was really the difference once Kurt took kind of the reins of the offense?
If you change, we had moved so quickly on offense. Trent Green was with me at the Redskins for 2 years, and he helped me put that offense in. And we had made a decision in the spring when spring ended, we broke for summer, that Kurt would be our number 2, and that was a huge step now. There wasn't anybody in that building that wanted him except Dick and I, and we were the 2 votes that mattered, obviously. So we made that decision because there was a lot of people that wanted to go out and sign Jim Hostetler and some of these guys that were out there that had won and were older vets. Well, it's not what we wanted. We want somebody that was going to do it just the way we wanted. And we knew that he was capable and had the ability to be a good player. We just didn't know how good. And we didn't know if he'd get his chance, but we were happy with him as a backup. Not knowing, of course, and not thinking that, he's going to start the first game for us. So when Trent went down, if you change everything that you do because of a change in a quarterback, you hold that whole football team hostage. Now, he's spent the same practices as everybody else. He's had a lot of reps. You have to assume, and this is the key now. This is such a big key because players get this sense. You're sending a bad message to any quarterback. He comes in that game and you start doing things, you slow it down, you're a little bit different. That's a bad message to that kid. When he went in there, we didn't change anything. Hey, look, Kurt, you're just going to run and catch up, buddy. Here's where we are. You've got a brand new Mercedes out there. Jump in. Here's the keys. Let's go. You just got to make all the right turns. His first 7-on-7 session, guys, was brutal. He was 0 for 8. He skipped the ball into the dirt everywhere. And Marshall stopped practice. He said, hey, Coach, can I stop and talk to the guys for just a second? I said, yeah, go right ahead. So he had all the 7-on-7 guys in a huddle, and he got them all together. And I stand right next to Ellen. Here's what he told me. He said, look, Kurt, you're our quarterback. It doesn't make any difference what happens. No matter what happens, you're the guy. Relax. We got this. We got your back. Don't worry about it. You just go play like we know you can play. You make mistakes, we're going to compensate for it. Just go get it. Well, from that point on, he was Kurt Warner. So that was huge. That was absolutely huge in the transition. And, I remember walking in the locker room after our fourth preseason game, and I had this national reporter. I won't tell you who it was. He came in there and grabbed me. He started yelling at me. Who do you think you have such a good team? Who do you think you are starting the season with Kurt Warner and passing up on these other guys, this, that, and the other thing? I said, who are you? I didn't know who he was, and he just went off on me. And I'd like to pick up the phone call, but I won't. But it's just, my point is, either you believe in the guy or you don't. You can't kind of be pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not, right? So you can jump in, and once that quarterback understands and he knows that you believe and trust him and that you're going to stay with him, then it just empowers him. And that's what I'm into as a coach, is empowering players.
Coach, you just kind of touched on that. You were not going to, you weren't going to hold the team hostage and try to curtail things for Kurt Warner or anybody really for that matter. So what was your offensive philosophy? And when you called plays, did you have a rhythm or a pattern that you wanted to get into, or was it, I'm going to take what the defense gave me and just keep going?
Well, our philosophy was we were going to attack. We were, again, just be on the attack and do things unexpected. We wanted to control the defense. We wanted the defense on their heels. And that's the formation and shifting. That wasn't just dress. That just wasn't just fluff. There's a reason for everything that we did. We were always trying to get force for the running game out of position. And a lot of times we did. By the moving and the shifting. And there's a lot of these guys are standing and talk to each other when the ball gets snapped and you're knocking them back off the line of scrimmage. So the moving and shifting was a major part. That was part of taking control of the game and setting the tempo. And then we tried to play as faster than everybody else. People used to say how fast we were at wide receiver. I don't know if we were or not. I know Isaac and Torrey and Ricky and Isaac Kim were, they had good speed. Were they fastest? Probably not the fastest guy, but they played faster than everybody else. And that's what we stressed when we went to practice. Philosophically, we practiced at game speed, buddy. That's what we believed in. That's what Dick believed in. That's what I believed in. So when we lined up in practice and we ran from drill to drill, we snapped that ball and we went full speed. We humped it on Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays. So when the games came, the games were actually easier in terms of the demanding of how much you run. Those guys were in great shape. We get in the fourth quarter, they're just hitting their stride. We were as good, if not better, in the fourth quarter than the first quarter, and that's unusual. And once they got used to that, and that's part of that philosophy, that we're going to be fast, we're going to play faster than you, we're going to play smarter than you, and we're going to come and get you. So hang on, buddy. You're in for a long ride.
Kind of going off one of your previous points there, Coach, talking about the shifting and motioning. When you're a coordinator and you're going into developing a shift or developing a motion versus an opponent, what are some of the things you look for? I know you said you wanted to influence the force player, but what are some of the things you look for when developing your shift package for a week?
Well, in order to do that, in order to shift and move and do all those things, the number one thing is you have to understand defense. So, my first 5 years in the league, even though I was coaching the position, the quarterbacks, receivers, and stuff, and tight ends, but my first 5 years, I also was the guy that broke all the tape down. So I spent 5 years looking at NFL defenses before I felt like I really kind of understood what was going on. So you have to understand the rules of of the defense of what they're doing with that front and that coverage. Are they spot droppers? Are they wall and carry players in this coverage? Are they, are they off the ball in the pass rush? Are they hugging the ball? How's that treat you? They readers. Are they gap control? All those things you have to know before you start moving and shifting, because you have to be able to predict what their reaction is going to be. And that's what we did when we did our film study. We went and we looked at, once we moved the tight end, there are so many teams in the National Football League that would flip the whole front. It was ridiculous. But once we see you doing that, it's going to be a circus. It's going to be a fire drill for you. And we just made it miserable for you then. So they've got to get shifted over, get lined up again, then all of a sudden the ball snapped and they're getting their hand on the ground. The safeties haven't finished rocking or changing. They change, and then all of a sudden the receiver goes back to the other side. Now they got to decide whether to send force back or not send force back. They're motioning back out of the backfield to a two-receiver side or the single receiver side. How are they going to account for them? They bring the safety down, they move the linebacker out. So all those questions we would ask during the course of the week, we would try to predict how they would respond to all these things. And interestingly, one of the things that I learned in college from the guy I played for, Darryl Rogers, with the unbalanced line, or true unbalanced line with the heavy sets and whatnot. Half the time these guys didn't know how to line up against it. So you throw that stuff in there. So when I see a team that's going to blitz you, well then, if they can get lined up right on the snap of the ball, God bless them. Because the zone dogs, all that stuff's predicated on strength. We'll change strength at least twice before that ball gets snapped and make you. There are times when they're bringing a guy and the popper's going out on the wrong side. You know what I mean? So that's why we did it, and trying to take control and put the defense on their heels. And for the most part, it's pretty effective. What we want to do is get you into a vanilla defense. Say, hey, I'm not dealing with that now. Once we know the defense, now we can go to work on it. You know, now we know that you're going to be in an overstack quarters defense, and now we can go to work on that.
Now, going off of just your basic install, if you were going through a day one install in maybe summer camp, training camp, or just maybe even an off-season camp, what would be some of your concepts that you would install on a day one basis?
Well, first of all, we put 3 runs in, and we were going to put all of our downhill runs in right away. And I believe in that double team. I know we all have the wide zones, just stretch them out, you stretch and cut and do all that, and that's fine. But it's a physical, violent game, and we want to start off in the running game with that. So we want double teams, the power plays weak and strong. We wanted isolations where you're running up in there with the double team and just pounding guys. And then from that point, you can get into the more of a finesse runs and whatnot. But we want them to buckle up and learn how to stay on double teams and snap late to linebackers, that kind of thing. Because when it's really tough, that's what you're going to revert back to. It's a physical game. Offensively, we had 3 levels that we worked on in our installation. We always started with a quick game, and then we had our 5-step game, which is a lot more involved than any part of the passing game because it's faster, and you usually have a full field read with a 5-step game. So then we had our 7-step, which is the deeper ball for play action, and or the third down step with deep turn-ins. Deep turn-ins are what we call digs. That was kind of our moniker. That was kind of who we were. We threw them well, we ran them well, and we were very successful doing it. And then we were trying to figure out right away how to get the ball into the receiver's hands with these quick screens and the quicks and stuff. So we'd have a little bit of both, and we'd rep the heck out of it in practice and just get rep after rep. The most important thing, I listened to some guys talk about practice and what they do in individual. We didn't really have a lot of individual time. What we did is we did a lot of hookup with the receivers and the quarterbacks. They threw route after route after route just for the timing part of it. So that when we ran a 4th outside step on a post at the angle in, what we used to call them angle 8s, when the quarterback hit his 5th step and that ball was released, the ball's gone before the receiver hits his outside foot to go in there, and the ball hits him 2 yards inside the numbers, approximately 18 yards deep. So that all has to be done. That all has to be worked on tirelessly in full speed, so you're grinding, and those receivers get into shape. They think they're in shape coming into camp. They're not. Now they get into playing shape, and all those, we do that for 15 to 20 minutes every practice.
Also with that, your quarterback, the level of ownership you give your quarterback. I've heard, Curt speak a couple times in terms of working within your offense and some of the things that he would check. How much freedom and checks do you give your quarterback on the line of scrimmage?
None, unless it's something. We had run checks where we go strong or weak based on a front, etc. Just stuff that everybody would do, but nothing really elaborate. Here's the thing about checking with a quarterback. There are times when we had to, just because of certain things, but we want to take everything off the play of the quarterback. So in other words, I didn't want him worrying about protections. So if the center calls out the protection, when you move and shift, the strength of that protection is going to change a lot. And so you have to know as a quarterback, what am I responsible for? So if they're bringing 4 a week, but week is over here, and then you change, and then they reload it back over there, and the center still has his call over there, then you have to handle that with a side adjust. And you have to work on that. And so I don't want that quarterback stopping everything. Remember, we talked about the speed of the game, right? All right, so if you have to stop and change as a quarterback, change your protection back over there, this slows the game down. Now all that movement shifting was meaningless because now you have to wait. Defense gets set again. So we hit it on the fly. And if they brought 2 over here on block, boom, ball comes out right away. And the receivers are grilled on that. When we work on that every day. Blitz period was a long period for us. Half of practice, half the time was blitz period for us. so that they get used to all that changes the formation. So I didn't want him worrying about the protection. I wanted him to find out who the right guy to throw the ball is and get the best throw out there that you can. We did have a couple of checks. The last check that Curt made for us was pick and run back, and I just don't believe in checking in passing. I just don't believe it. What we try to do is create a play call that you should know what to do no matter what happens. You should have an answer for it. I don't want to call a play and say, "Oh, look what they're in. It's a bad play." No. We should have an answer for it to help us get us out of it. So what we ended up doing a lot of these. I guess they're called RPOs today. Well, this is 20 years ago. Well, we were throwing them then. So we had a run called. Instead of checking to another run, instead of checking to a pass, we were side adjusting these runs on 2 to 3 steps and throwing them. In fact, the Super Bowl against New England, I called 9 of these, and we threw, I think, 4 of them. So that's how we handled it. I just want to take him out of it in terms of stopping the game and making a check. I hate that. It slowed us down. I don't want to slow down. Hey, let's go.
Coach, do you have a preferred, like, favorite quick game concept that you guys would say is your go-to, or do you just kind of base it a lot off of opponent personnel?
A lot of it, quick game is matchup, particularly man-to-man coverage. We're going to try and formation get a matchup that we really like one-on-one. Otherwise, if it's a zone, we've always liked slants. Slants are good for everything. There's some things that, like trail coverage at 2 minutes is difficult, but somewhere in there, when you build that play, and this is the promise that we always made to a quarterback. Look, it's not good against 2-man. It's not good against quarters or whatever. All right, that's fine. So you have this over here on this side of the field. Now, if you get that coverage, then over here we built in something just for that. We've got the quick out as opposed to the slant, or we got something else over there we like. So every play that we put in, if we're going to see a variety of coverages where it's good against most, but there's a couple it's not, we got to make sure the quarterback in that play, it doesn't have to check. He just knows that now this guy over here has got this route, the back's got this route, and that's where I need to go. That's where I need to get the ball to him over here, instead of just keeping everything right there, which I know a lot of guys do. I don't believe in that. So when you make this play, when you have a new play and you go over this with your quarterbacks and when you install it with your offense, all right, look, here's what we think we're going to get. This is why we like this. But they play this coverage too. It's not good against that. Here's where the ball's got to go over here. So you got to be alive on this thing. And you practice that. So when you practice a play, you practice against what you think you're going to see, which is good. But you also, at the end of the week, you got to throw some of these other things in here to make sure it functions and everybody's good with it. So just trying to remove the thought process away from the quarterback and not slow him down or stymie him. Just let him get back and excel at what he does. Making quick, good decisions and accurate throws, and don't clot it all up with all this other stuff.
Then I got one more. This is a question from one of our listeners. They wanted to focus a little bit on the footwork of your quarterback in his drop, whether it be mostly focusing there on shotgun. Did you have any specific types of teaching points that you had for your quarterback in his drop to make sure that he was to balance when he was making his throw? And the listener was focusing most on Curt's drop. And I don't know, I didn't ask the follow-up with him in terms of what he was so enamored with, but they were talking about the way in which Curt would catch the ball and throw it. Do you have anything to kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, we go to the field for weeks and work on drops without throwing football under the center and shotgun. Yeah, I mean, that's the detail. That's the John Cooper, right? You got to coach the little details of everything. So what we want him to do is be in what we call the shortstop position, where the right foot's forward because we're going to pivot on the left foot. So we always had a staggered start, whether it's under the center or in the shotgun. So you don't take a false step. So there's no wasted time or distance here, right? So we have our feet are staggered like this, right foot forward, so that when you catch it, you got your palms out, thumbs out, so that you can handle any errant throw, okay? So you grab the ball and you pivot on the left foot and you get back, and that begins the drop. Once you catch the ball and pivot, it's just like coming away from the center, okay? So if you're going to take a 7-step tempo, some quarterbacks are big striders, others aren't. Some are more comfortable with a real quick 5 with a double hitch up, and some are more comfortable with 3 work in place and hits, right? So most of the time, most guys want to take 3 nice steps and then hitch twice in place You've got to give the defensive end something to swing at back there at 9.5 yards and then take it away. All right. So you got to give them a rush point. So when you get that back foot back there, you have to hitch up about 1 yard to 1.5 yards into the pocket. And that lets the tackles push those rushers by. You cannot sit back there at 9.5 yards. So that's real important. When they hit that back foot, we want to load our legs up. So when he gets to his position, we want him to be flat shouldered, nice and balanced with bent knees, right? Bent knees. And we don't want his shoulder pointed to the target. We want him open just a little bit to free his hips up, right? Ball's head held in the breastplate, just above the elbows, so that he can bring it back nice and tight and get rid of the ball. However he throws the ball, he throws it, right? So I know it was really quick, but we spent hours talking about this and walking through it. But the key to these drops is you want to drop in rhythm, and you don't. And I watch them today, and it drives me nuts. They're real slow coming back because they're actually making decisions as they drop back on what's going on defense. Nah, you want to get back as fast as you can. What you see at the beginning of your drop is not going to correlate to the end of your drop, especially in all these zones and whatnot, right? You just got to confirm the coverage, get back quickly and get set and set up into the pocket, and now make your decisions in your throw. Don't lollygag back there because that sense of timing can't change. It's got to be the same all the time. I see quarterbacks in the same game going back at different speeds of time. Like it doesn't matter, and it does. There's poor offensive linemen are going nuts. If you're on a 5-step drop tempo, then you just shuffle. Remember, on a 5-step tempo, you're going to be at about 6 to 6.5 yards deep from the center. All right. So if your toes are 4.5 or 5 yards in the shotgun, you catch that ball. You do what we call shuffle. Just a quick turn, shuffle in place, and then hitch. Working your feet, hitch, and work your time and get the ball out. 3-step drop. Take the ball, snap your feet immediately, and work your feet and get the ball out. Nothing wasted, and everything's done quickly. And get your point that you want to throw the ball. Then, if you want buy time. But you don't want to you don't ooze through a drop and then try and speed it up at the end to try to get rid of the ball quick. It doesn't work. You want to get there quickly. Then, if you need to buy a little time, then buy some time. It doesn't work the other way very well. And it's so important to stay balanced and not let your feet come together. Stay off your doggone tiptoes, and hold that ball in the chest where center of gravity is where it needs to be. As soon as that ball comes up here, if you take your hands and put them up here and you're standing up, you can feel your center of gravity come up. And that's what, and if you take that ball and you put it back here in your ear, you can feel that weight transfer back into that back foot. You hit that back foot in your drop. You want to press it, but you don't want to be over that foot, right? And that's what we call loading the legs up. You can feel the pressure and the strength into that right foot. And then as you gather forward, your hips are flat and your shoulders are flat. And that allows you to use all the levers from your feet all the way out to your trigger finger on the ball. If you're tipped one way or the other, then you're not using your legs and you're usually not using your hip. You got to let everything be free. And it's like a big whip. And you interrupt that whip once you become tilted this way or that way. Having flat shoulders, other than a deep ball where you got to get the shoulder up, having flat shoulders is just absolutely imperative.
Now, Coach, you've recently launched your own podcast as part of a tandem with co-host Ron Pitts called the Run It Again podcast. How did this endeavor come together, and what has the experience been like for you so far?
John, Ron and I did Fox together. He was a play-by-play, and I was a color commentator for a while years ago, and we became pretty good friends. And Ron had called me, he had this idea, and I said, yeah, sure. I didn't think a whole lot of it, and I didn't know anything about a podcast. They kind of told me why, and we have a real good rapport. And then I got to thinking about, this is a pretty good idea. I didn't know how to start it up or anything, but there's a company, obviously, Westwood One, and then Mike McKay Productions and whatnot, and we got this organized and going pretty good. And the whole idea of this podcast is to be different than everybody else, so that just what we got done talking about, we can talk about these things. We can take a coaches and a former player's view of things and have an honest discussion about it. A lot of things that you perhaps won't hear out there. Players are great, but a lot of them are limited to what they know at that position, not so much the whole spectrum of it, which a coach has to know. And then coaches don't have the player's perspective. So between the two of us, we have perhaps a different perspective and approach to some of these topics, and maybe you see on TV or on the radio.
Building off that a little bit, Coach, your guys' way of doing things is going to be a little bit different, like you have branded yourself with. And so why do you think it is that, the type of reporting where maybe not the entire story is being shared with us, especially maybe on our major networks, why do you think that is really kind of troublesome? And how does that benefit your podcast moving forward? Because you can provide that perspective.
I think that's a great question. I think the whole idea is think of this. All right, here's what you heard. Now here's what really happened. Here's what the player's really thinking about on this thing. Here's why this coach did that, or this is why the player. Everything is conjecture. Out there, and the topics are kind of the same. It gets worked over, and it's just like, what are the most important things for the quarterback has to have to play at a high level in this game? And they throw all this garbage around. They don't know. They really don't know. And I feel like we do know for the most part, and would like to impart this knowledge out there from a coach's and a player's perspective, kind of the inner workings of this stuff. What you are looking for in a good running back, and why it's so important, and what the needs are. And so much of it is hee-haw, and it bothers me. Whether we're right or not, we have an opinion, and for the most part, I think it's grounded in not just common sense, but experience more than anything else. And this is why things are kind of the way they are. So that's our perspective on it. Obviously, I am very opinionated, always have been, and whether I'm right or wrong, you'll hear my opinion.
Coach, what's the ultimate goal for the Run It Again podcast, and what do you think the future holds for it going forward?
The ultimate goal is first of all, it's got to be fun for us to do, and I just really enjoy this. I know Ron does too. It's perspective. The whole thing is to give a different perspective than maybe what people get, on TV or over the radio, and an explanation of why we think this is going to come out this way, or what really happened, and I think it's just a different enlightenment, if you will, that hopefully then they'll get any other place. And I think that, our goal is to reach out to as many people as we can, get them excited as we are about it.